to perceive choice. You know, in one way, I have choice. You know, I can choose to be in presence. I can choose peace. I can choose to be conscious somehow. So in a way, there is a choice. And from another perspective, there is no choice, because what you are doing in the moment is the best that you can do. So I wonder how all of you experience this kind of paradox of having choice on one side and at the same time there is no choice.
Maybe you have to ask people directly, David. David,
Yeah, I don't know, Bianca, what do you feel? Or David, yeah, it's to David.
I get it's there is a feeling that I have a choice. It's just a feeling. It's I don't believe. I believe I do not have a choice.
I would say there is kind of a choice, but in the end, you have also to drop that story of choice, maybe. You can use it maybe for a part, but then comes the time you have to drop it. You know what I mean?
Excuse me, I had some connection trouble. Can you repeat, please? I just missed.
I think that that there is kind of a choice to be present, but there comes somewhere in the moment where you have to drop this story of choice.
Well, I just realized believing there is no choice is also just a belief. It's not true. I can believe there is a choice. I can believe there is no choice. I have no choice about it.
I never saw any conflict between seeing that human beings are obviously willful agents with no choice but to make choices, in the knowledge that the choices is the power to make those choices does not come from the individual, and calling it a choice is just a thought that gets layered onto what happens after something happens. It's just it's a way of making sense of agency that is not independent of anything else.
Okay, Jeremy, what are your thoughts about choice? What's your experience about choice? Yeah.
couple thoughts come to mind. One is that I can only seem to choose between things that arise as options, but I have no control or choice over the options that arise to me. So if a thought comes up, then that's at least within the world, the possibility. But I'm not in control of whether something comes up as a possibility. The other one is something that's been more on my mind lately, and that is that it feels like, in my experience, that the only thing that I have, my sphere of control of like the things that I can, where I actually have any agency, is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And like the things that I think that I have control over is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And the only thing that's left right now is where I put my attention. In my experience, I still have control over that.
Is that up for question?
That's exactly where my head started going. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a suck in. This whole idea of control, of choice, of free will. It's a suck in. It's as relevant to real life as a Walt Disney movie. Okay, that's the bottom line. Whether the problem is that we believe our thoughts about that, and we ignore our experience. So okay, so we're sitting here and we've got a couple of alternatives coming to mind. I can keep talking or I can stop talking. The idea of me choosing one is just another idea, is it not? I will either keep talking or I will stop talking, or I will talk a little bit, or whatever. So what we're really all about here is our relationship to what is actual. And just because a thought comes along and says, you could have chosen that differently, you could have done it differently to the way you did it, it's a lie. It's not even close to what actually happened. In some story, yes, I could have chosen, but I didn't. What happened is what happened is what happened is what happened is what happened. For a whole lot of reasons, like all of the circumstances, like nobody's interrupting me, like the fact that I'm capable of talking. There's a million circumstances. In fact, if I go back far enough, it was the fact that my great-great-great-grandfather did whatever it was that he was doing. It wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't be here talking if it wasn't for all of those circumstances. So circumstances have an involvement in it, but the complexity of that it's a waste of time for me trying to narrow it down or to know what's going on. It's crazy. Why would I even bother? So the whole thing is a diversion. The whole idea of having a choice or not having a choice or having control or making decisions, or even willing an intention to arise, that's got as much validity as the bloody Barbie movie that just finished playing. You know, it's at best, it's a bit of entertainment, nothing to do with reality, nothing to do with actuality. Now I'm going to choose to stop talking.
There's the question, how can something that doesn't exist make a choice? How can an idea make a choice?
Yes, yes, that question, can a thought think, is brilliant. And the idea of a choice is an idea. So how can it actually choose anything? You're right. But it's a waste of time to get in there. People get lost in that forever. Have I got free will? Have I not got free will? What the fuck does it matter? It's a joke. It's a waste of time.
It reminds me of a realization I had a month or so ago about whether or not I had crossed some threshold of waking up, and that I realized that it didn't matter, because the way that I was going about the world before waking up was going to be the same. I was going to be doing this, like, gosh, talking is difficult when I wake up this early. I was going to be doing the same things before and after. And it reminds me of the same thing about free will, is that whether I have a real control over my choices or not, I would be giving myself the space and the compassion either way. If something was under my control and I started to regret it, I would realize that the regret is just a thought, and I would this is where I get stuck, I'm realizing, is that when it's like something happens in my experience and I try to put my attention on my presence in the moment and bodily sensations and what's real right now, that's the part that's still a little sticky for me.
So
where was I going with this?
Do something. You're still trying to do something, which implies that you do have control or agency. You do have a choice about doing it or not doing it. It's all an implication that's there with the idea of doing something. So we talk about that all the time. We talk about doing, you know, when you realize you're lost in thoughts, have a laugh. That's a doing. But talking about it is just one of the circumstances that one of the conditions, if you like, that might be required or to make something happen. It might happen as a result of the words that we've spoken and the ideas that we've floated. But do we have a choice to reject or accept those words? Do we have any choice about the ideas that come up as a result of hearing those words? We're helpless. We cannot do a single thing. All we can do is watch, and we can't even do that. If watching happens, great. If watching doesn't happen, great. Michael, you've got your hand up there.
Hi. Yeah, I wanted to refer to the question that was asked previously. How is it that the choices are made, but there is no one who chooses? Because I think it's a legitimate practical question. Like there is the part that, you know, the conceptual part, but there is also the practicality of things, of how it works. So what the other way to look at it is there is different processes that are operating in our system, in our body. We have preferences, we have memory, we have skills. And so that's how things get done. Like, you know, like I have the skill to speak, and I have certain preferences, and I have certain things that I know, and I have certain memory. And so then something happens, it triggers something else. And then I feel that desire to speak, and then I go and speak. So it's kind of like a sequence of events that unfolds. But there doesn't necessarily have to be in me for it to happen. So that, you know, that doesn't mean like that there isn't or there is, but it's just, I'm just saying, like in practical terms, it doesn't really require it. Yeah. Yep. Hope that helps.
It sounds like a good explanation to me of the way things happen. You know, the circumstances, your skills, your preferences, the surrounding conditions, all of that stuff means that something happens. For us to ignore that something that happened and go, oh, did we choose? Did we have free will? Is there a person here that could have done that on purpose? That's all extra to what actually happened. The only relevant thing is what actually happened. All the rest is just mental masturbation. It's hard to talk about the intent of what happens, because what happens doesn't have any intent. What happens is just what happens. But a lot of what happens is a diversion away from what's really going on. Where we want to end up is in two worlds. We want to end up in a world where we can operate and interact with other people and do what pretty much what society has taught us, what our culture has taught us to do. We want to be able to do that without being lost in it. But what we also want to do is shed a lot of the unnecessary rubbish stuff that brought with it. And once we can get rid of a certain amount of rubbish, things come up, we deal with those things, we look at them, we investigate them, they change. And eventually we go through life with a different appreciation that we had before. We appreciate what is actual because we're interacting with what is actual a lot more. We're not interacting with our mind. Now we start to interact with the actual world. That's kind of what's happening in a funny way. We've kind of drifted away from your original question a bit, David, about that having a choice. So yeah, go on.
No, my question wasn't so much in a metaphysical, theoretical way, but because for me, I can see more and more in my experience, like when there is some uncomfortable emotion or sensations in me arising, okay, I can see more and more all of my system trying to avoid this, right? So kind of patterns who show up of avoidance, of distraction and stuff like this. So at this moment, this is where I was kind of wondering how you felt about this, because to me there is still a sense of choice, in this moment. even if somehow I know it's a thought, you know, but sometimes when I am in my, I feel something in my belly, for example, you know, a very strong, like a strong pulse, impulsion to do something in my belly. So there, sometimes I feel this, and I have this very strong sense of, oh, I can stay with this as much as I can until it's too much, you know. Because often when we are here, we talk about trying to feel the emotion, trying not to be too much in thought. So all of this kind of implies somehow a sense of two ways to approach experience, to choice, you know. So it is not so much in the theoretical way, but in the experiential way, you know. I don't know if it's clear what I'm trying to share. You are muted, Vince. You are muted.
Yeah, I'm saying it's clear to me what you're saying, and it goes back to what I was saying a little earlier, that if we get sidetracked into the idea that we have a choice or we don't have a choice, and you know that whole thing is a diversion away from what actually went on. What actually went on is what we can. I was going to say what we need to look at, but what we can appreciate is what actually went on. And as you say, a lot of the time, if that's an unpleasant emotion, we'll divert away from it, and we'll do our habitual way of getting away from it, whether that's with a thinking story thing or whether it's with activity, whatever, we'll divert because we don't want to go where it's unpleasant. The irony is that if we do go where it's unpleasant, it often turns out to be not nearly as unpleasant as we thought it was. So, yeah. If the quickest path where we're going is to pay very, very little attention to any thoughts. No thoughts are going to be true. All thoughts are bullshit. All thoughts are going to mislead you. All thoughts. But, and I've used this analogy before, it's like taking a hammer out of the toolbox to stir your coffee. It's not really appropriate to use that tool for that job. Well, thinking is a tool, and there are jobs where that's an appropriate tool, but it is not appropriate tool when it comes to coping with what emotions come up as a result of being triggered. That's not the right tool. It is always going to be the wrong tool. So back to the practical aspect of your question, David, and that was that you felt like there was a choice exercised about what, staying in India or going home or something along those lines?
No, in a very practical way. For example, for example, it's very simple. Like taking the phone, for example. If I have like I'm waiting for a taxi or a bus, or I have 5, 10, 20 minutes, half an hour between two events, and I just have to wait. There's nothing to do, let's say. You know, the very strong habit is to pick up the phone, for example, to watch something, anything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So at this moment, there's a very strong like sense that I can choose, you know.
But you can't choose. You know you can't choose.
Yeah.
You will pick up the phone or you won't pick up the phone. Yeah. So I used to think, oh look, I love waiting in lines. I don't mind that at all. I can look around and see what's coming into my senses around the place. I can think about this or that. It was always a good thing. And then I realized I'm doing stuff. What I'm doing is I'm avoiding the feeling that I call waiting, that feeling of being in nowhere, it being nowhere. I mean, we can talk about we're waiting for time to pass. We're waiting for activity in front of us to finish. We've got all these stories about waiting, and all they do is keep us away from that feeling that we call waiting, that feeling of nothing. You know, people talk about boredom like boredom is a nothing state, but boredom is an incredibly active state to get us away from what we're feeling. And boredom works really, really well with that because it takes us straight into our mind about what we should be doing or what we could be doing or what we're not doing or whatever the story comes up. But yes, so there is the act, there is the act, there's the action. Words aren't good here. There is the happening, whatever that happening is. And then there is the extra we put on top of it. And that's what we're talking about. And that extra is the idea of having a choice or a choosing. So if we're waiting and a couple of ideas come up that we can either, we'll go to a different line or we'll just walk out and come back and do the job later or whatever we might consider to be a choice. The reality is one of those choices will get made. I'm not making it. Nobody's making it. It's not actually being made. It is one of those choices will happen. One of those alternatives will happen. It's not a choice. But the one that happens had to be the one that happened. It could never be the one that didn't happen. And how do we know that? Because it happened. It's not, I'm not being funny about it. We know, it's not a logical conclusion. The one that happened because it was the one that happened, because everything led to that, everything. Very little to do with us personally, but that's how it worked out. So the moment we do, did I have a choice or not? It's a diversion. Drop it. That's another doing, isn't it?
No, now that I'm listening to all of you, I can see that I'm still I'm still believing in the afterthought. I'm still believing the afterthought and the before thought. You know, before the choice and afterthought. And I'm still, more often that I would like, I'm still believing it, to be honest.
Yep.
But thank you to remind me, all of you.
I wanna just comment on that. I mean, it's a practice. You can check it. You can see it consistently in your experience. It's not, you don't have to believe anything. You don't have to believe anything. You don't have to, convince yourself or have anyone else convince you that that you do not exist, that you do not have free will or anything like that. I mean, it's all about just seeing it in your own experience. So I've been doing that a lot in my own practice before, is just kind of looking, well, it seems like I have free will. It seems like I can decide, and there's kind of layers of that. Like at first it was like, oh, I have this sensation or I have this emotion, do I have any control over it? And I would just explore it in my experience. And then, oh, I don't have control over emotions, right? They come and go. They depend on external factors. They depend on my internal conditioning. And I would see it consistently over and over. I don't have control. But then, the emotion comes. Maybe there is resistance, or there is some sort of thought about it. And then I would look, well, do I have control over this thought? Do I have control over this resistance to this emotion? And then again, kind of like looking at it consistently, and it seemed like I didn't. And then there would be some sort of reaction or no reaction. And then I would look at this again. Do I have control over this? Did I have any control over what just happened? Could I have decided to do something different? Like, was it an actual decision that I made? Was there a moment where I made the decision? Like, can you find a moment, David, where you make the decision to pick up your phone or to not pick up? And if you look very, very closely, it's like there is a kind of, you might notice that there is sort of general idea, oh, maybe I will look at my phone, or maybe I will like sit and relax and meditate while I'm waiting. And there is kind of like a general thought, a general idea, but can you find the exact moment where you made the decision? Can you find the exact moment where you're like, okay, decision is made, I'm gonna pick my phone, and then you pick it up. And I've been looking at that a lot of my life, and I couldn't find it. And that for me, that was a very interesting kind of moment to see that there is no, because the mind sort of aligns things and smooth things over. And the mind tells us that there is a kind of consistent process. There is some thoughts and there is some thinking. And then I made a decision, and then I decided to do this, and then I completed this, and so on. But if you look very closely, it might just fall apart. And it's kind of a fun thing to do. It's like a discovery. Yeah.
It's huge. It's really huge, actually. So frequently, what I've been noticing recently is when people around me, either overtly or not, want me to be different to how I am. And of course, they're coming from somewhere where they believe in choice. They believe in willpower. So they think like every parent thinks, that if a child tries hard enough, he can be different to the way he is spontaneously. Right? And that's the way I'm feeling for me. So one of the things that we're moving towards here, as I see it, is being authentic, being spontaneous, having no apology for how we are. How we are is how we are, and I don't have control over that. So what have I got to apologize about? And even though my mother, if she was still alive, would still be telling me I should stand up straighter, or I should not eat so much at meals, or I should not fart in public, or whatever it is that he tells me should or shouldn't happen, that's just another story. It's all irrelevant. It's going to happen. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? So if we're in that what situation that David's talking about, where there's nothing going on and the inclination is to pick up the phone, right? You can see that could happen, and that picking up the phone would happen, and then we would be looking for apps to amuse ourselves or whatever's going on the phone. But if we were about to pick up the phone and the thought came to us, you don't have to do this, are we then in a position to have a choice or not have a choice? But if we pick it up and we're not even aware that we pick it up, it's just a habit and we pick it up and we get into it, then there is no possibility of a choice. It just happened. But if the thought arose, you don't have to, or you're about to pick up your phone and get lost in it. If that thought arises, does that then present us with a choice? It appears so, but is it real? Is it an actual choice? Because what happens next, either the phone won't get picked up or the phone will get picked up. That depends on a whole lot of things as well. And whatever actually happens could be the only thing that was going to happen. The only thing that did happen, rather, not was going to. It couldn't happen any other way. Because something else would have had to been different for a different outcome. Kind of gets a little
I
bit.
think, Vince,
Yeah, go on.
what you talk about, it's about how I experience it. It's tenderness.
Tenderness, yeah.
Because often when I see that I'm in my, I can see it kind of before. I mean, in all the stages of the distraction, right, or what is pattern. Now I see that I'm on the phone, I see that it's a distraction, and somehow I have more and more, I have a feeling of kind of tenderness, you know, like, oh look, this is the only thing that your system can do, you know, like a little child, you know, like you think that if you hide behind some chairs, everything is fine, you know, it's like everything will be good now, you know. So somehow what you talk about acceptance, what I'm trying now to do with all of this, it's is to accept that my system, it is how it is, you know, and often this is enough to kind of cool down everything, and new options appear, often
Yes.
new ways of
Another one altogether comes
being.
up,
So
yeah.
I think what you talk about, it's I mean, not apologizing. To me, it's being tender toward myself, you know, because this system, my patterns and the way I behave is the only one I have, you know,
Mm.
and it's the only one I've got, you know, to exist here.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Bianca has a hand up, but I'd love Bianca to talk about being tender towards herself.
Well, I wanted to say that, you know, when Vince says just drop it, this thinking about if there is free will or not. In my experience, it was helpful to me to really think through it and to read about free will and like to go to the end and to really see that this whole concept of free will is illogical. It's a paradox in itself. That doesn't hold. And when I could see it with my reason, then it just dropped. So it can be different for different people. Some just drop it, and some need to really think through it to get it with logic.
Yep.
And I take it that in the end it's a story. A story I have a control, or a story I have no control, and this human, this organism, this mind chooses the story that's more comfortable for it, and that's more beneficial.
Yep.
Because both stories have consequences, and there was scientific research even on people believing in free will and not believing in free will, that those who believe in free will maybe tend to be more ethical in their choices, more, but those don't believing in free will are more compassionate towards, more forgiving. So there are pros and cons on both sides, and well, for me, no free will works better.
Yeah,
But
there's quite a range, if you like, of perspectives on this. So if so let's say standard traditional psychology or psychiatry was to do those studies, they would no doubt have, well, they should have control groups that they compare against the people who are in the thing and so on. But their idea of no free will is most likely determinism. And that's not true. That's as equally untrue as free will is untrue. So what is actual here is not something that a lot of those studies would come up with, would look at, would even investigate. So for example, not having free will for me is freedom. It's freedom. It's like you say about the compassion is a big part of not having free will, I think. But for others, not having free will might be a victim state or a prisoner state, if you know what I mean. So a lot of it depends on what you actually, when we're talking about free will, what are we talking about? The same thing? I think not with a lot of the studies that are done. Yeah. But as I say, I keep coming back tonight to the theme. The theme here tonight seems to be that whether we've got free will or haven't got free will, whether we make choices or don't make choices, it's all irrelevant. It's a scam. It's all a way of keeping us away from what's actually going on. And that's what we're on about. What is actually happening? Actually. What is our experience? And the experience that we get best, the most valuable experience, and that's not quite right either. The most valuable experience is direct experience. It's experience without the confusion and complication and, dare I say, corruption that comes when we start thinking about the experience. The experience is beneath thinking about. If we think about it, we respond to what we think about, and then we change the experience, don't we? So for those of us who are really, really into lots and lots of thinking, it seems almost like we've got to fight our way to the surface or dig our way down to something that's actual. It's a long way. It's a hard layer to get through because we do it so well. Oh, our thoughts are so skillful in what they do. Yeah.
Vince or others, would you argue, early on I was saying that I still, at least in recent past, and this seemed to shift a little bit during this discussion, that I seem to still have some control over where I put my attention. And now I'm starting, as I was sitting here, I realized that I couldn't find moments where I was actually in control of my attention. It was just going places. And that the only reason why it is tending to go into my senses is because of the conditioning over recent weeks and months. I come here and my brain is constantly reminded, put yourself in the now, put yourself in your body. And so it's building up this habit of going into the body or going into what I am directly observing in my experience. And that is building up over time. And I'm not choosing. This actually reminds me of something that I said last week, which was I seem to not be able to get out of the body anymore and pretend like, or like to ignore my sensations. And I'm thinking that this is all just because I am practicing more and more because I am coming to these talks, I'm reading things, I'm watching YouTube videos, that all of this is just like this ball of snow rolling down a mountain and just collecting more and more be in your present experience snow, that it's just becoming more and more of a habit that I don't really have any control over.
Sounds good to me. Yeah. And what you said brings me back to something that Bianca said a little earlier, that is a big part of it. We think about these things, and there's underlying the thoughts about them is well, there's feelings about them. Now, remember I said feelings are sensations plus stories, but let's just take, there's an emotion, if you like. That's the same thing. It's a sensation plus stories, but that's irrelevant for this moment. That when our mind is running down this track and we're hearing things, or we're reading things, or watching things, right, we get this, yeah, that's right. Or no, not that one. No, you know, we have this body affirmation, or a body denial, a body retreat. Even might be better than say a denial, but and there can be subtle. So we hear things and we go, oh yeah, that could be right. Yeah, that feels good. Or we go, nah, not that one. Definitely not. You know, or variations in between that, right? This is beliefs changing. You know, if we go, yeah, that's interesting. That could be right. There's an attraction. There's an openness to it. There's an investigation that's invited. And as a result of that, we then put a stamp over that area and say, well, that's the way we believe it now. It's changed as a result of that. Yeah, I mean, so much of what I say is just so contradictory in itself. It seems paradoxical, but it's like the actual world that we want to appreciate is in direct experience. But at the same time, it's stories all the way down. It's stories, or stories, response. Right? We cannot not have stories. So are we just looking for better stories? Stories that can help us appreciate what is actual? They can be part of the tool that we use. But yeah, it's a bit paradoxical, isn't it? Yeah. If we had a magic wand, let's say all right, I'm a wizard and I can wave a magic wand over all of you guys, and I'd send you home tonight with not having no thoughts, but with a healthy attitude towards your thoughts that said, yeah, you can see that most of the thoughts are just repetitions of what I thought about yesterday, whatever. So I'll not pay any attention to them. But what's really going on? Okay, so that magic wand means that thoughts won't hijack you anymore. That what you'll get as a result of that is an appreciation of what you are feeling. Now, that might not be a really good thing, because in the beginning, what you are feeling might not be very pleasant. And until you wade through a bit of that, if assuming that they are not very pleasant, once you investigate them, examine them, you'll see that unpleasantness that you were keeping away from isn't so bad. In fact, it's not that bad at all. Right? And after you look at that, they'll stop happening altogether, or they'll fade out over time, and you'll be left with an openness for new stuff. So if you can accept that magic wand, that's what'll happen. There won't be a question of whether there was a choice or free will or any more. That's just rubbish. Forget it. That's like going and watching a movie on TV. It's just a diversion. Could be entertaining, maybe not. Pretty boring, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. So how do we turn that magic wand into an actuality? How do we get to where we are no longer hijacked by our thoughts, our very seductive thoughts that seem to have a really legitimate place? Like, do we have choice? Do we have free will? Yeah. Am I doing this? Is it important? Is it not important? It's all rubbish. It's all rubbish.
What you're saying reminds me of that metaphor I mentioned on your website from Bernardo Kastrup, when he says, we're born into a cockpit with no windows.
Yeah, that was
And
good.
we're
I
like,
that. Yeah.
we're like pilots flying by instruments alone. And the only thing that there is actual contact with is our representation. We're not in contact with a world out there. Everything that we experience is a representation that is constructed internally within the cockpit based on what the instruments of the senses are revealing.
Yep.
And in that sense, even direct experience is a representation. It's never something, it's never something from the outside coming in through an open window. It's always data, and then a constructed representation from it.
Absolutely.
And when you see it from that perspective, it kind of, for me, it kind of silences thoughts, because thought is a derivative of a representation. So it's a reflection of a representation. So you're just in that reflective world based on something that the mind created from data that flowed in. And there is no getting out of it. There is no out of that.
That is it. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. When you were talking there, I was thinking, and I didn't think of it before, about the cockpit with no windows, but it's like, imagine that there's a camera on outside the cockpit, right? That's picking up what's going on in front of the plane or whatever, and that it's projecting an image of what's going on outside on the inside of the cockpit. And we've been told all along that that's the real thing. It's not an image, it's the real thing. It's actually outside what we're looking at, but it's just an image. And in fact, that camera's got bird shit all over it, so it's not a really good image either. Yeah.
He also says that physicality is an illusion, that the world out there is not physical.
Yeah, that's jumping ahead a bit, though. I agree with that. That world out there is construction.
Physicality is another idea. It's a way that we make sense of the data. that comes in.
Absolutely.
We
Yeah.
conceive of it as physical matter. But then it's interesting that the whole metaphor kind of breaks down when you question, because I don't know if he questions the fact that that all of it, the metaphor is itself known. It's recognized. The cockpit. Where is that? What is receiving that data?
That's another diversion. Yeah.
You think you would take that as a diversion?
Yep.
To
Yeah, that's another rabbit hole. It's a waste of time.
Oh, yeah,
going
yeah.
on that one. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So to put this into context, what we're trying to do is we're using something that's not actual to get at something that is actual, or at least closer to what is actual. So from what you're saying, David, and I agree with you, it's true that there's the only thing that is actual that we can definitively say is actual is our current experiencing, but we can't say what that is, because the moment we start to do that, we change it, we interpret it. It's from our own personal perspective. Yeah,
it's actual representation, actual construction based on the data that came in.
Yes. All right. So what that brings up for me then is this: there's the absolute and the relative. Right? And so you were talking somewhat about the absolute, but we cannot know. We don't have the capacity to know what the absolute is, anything about it even. All we've got is our interpretation of what we imagine to be something actual. So I agree, but it is a bit above our pay grade here to start to put too much focus on the actual existence of anything. That we'll get to that, we will, but it's at the moment it's going to mislead us. So what we've got to do is we've got to pretend that our experience is as close as we can get to what is actual at this stage. And once we get that, then we can drop it and move on. But we've still got to get that first, because we're so far in the wind with our thoughts that we can't even get close to what appears to be actual with our feelings. Now I'm talking very general. Yeah, go on.
I understand, but this is why you use the word actual and not real, because we have no idea what's real. And it's also how I would say factual. I mean, if I have a hallucination, it is a fact. I see a kangaroo in my room and I'm not in Australia. So it is a fact. I see it. It is actual. I see a pink kangaroo. Yeah.
It is an actual experience of yours.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about whether the kangaroo is actual. We're saying that, yes, your experience is actual. Yes.
And if I see you on this screen, it's also an actual experience.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean you are there.
No. It could be a clever.
It's not the actual.
Yes. Yeah.
What I hear you saying, Vince, is just to try to tie some of these things together in my head, is that there's, if we were to pretend that there are like layers, and like there's absolute reality, and then this cockpit that we have where our experience of reality isn't reality, it's a interpretation by our bodies and brains of what is there, but that is an interpretation. And so when we talk about our direct experience, we're trying to focus on this layer and not another layer of abstraction on top of that, which is all of our thoughts. We're just like, okay, we've already have to deal with this fact that we're not directly experiencing the absolute. We've got this layer of interpretation from our bodies. Let's not make it worse by then adding another layer of abstraction and experience life through our thoughts. Let's at least try to get rid of that veil so that we've only got one.
Yep. And as soon as we can do that, we can start to appreciate that what David was saying was that what we take to be actual is still an interpretation. It is still a modification of something. And we'll never know what that something is. That's outside of our ability to conceive it, of it. But it's as close as we can get. So what we're really interested in here isn't what is going on. For us, it's our response to what we believe is going on. And that's the layer that we're trying to work through. We're trying very hard to get through the really bad stories that keep us away from what turns out to be our interpretation of what is actual. So, all right, we're going to change our interpretation of what is actual. We're going to go from that social cultural idea that what is actual is good or bad, or right or wrong, or whatever opinion we might come up about it, to just noticing it without those things. And then we've moved into a place of greater appreciation of what's going on. Which is just a doorway through into something even further, something else. It sounds a bit esoteric now, doesn't it?
I think one very practical way about everything we are sharing, it's something that to me helped me, is that my experience as it is a totality of reality. You know, just in a very pragmatic way. Because if there is something else and I'm not experiencing it, it's imagination straight away. So in a very practical way, it can cut a lot of thoughts. Just saying what is in my experience is a totality of reality. And whatever people say, there is angels, there is realm of illumination. Maybe, maybe not, but this is imagination from my perspective. So I like what my approach. I like my approach now to be very practical, and I will resume that everything I understand all of these levels and everything, but at the end, I like Beans because you always come back to something very practical, you know, really what we can do directly now. And I think this is very good to me, this thing to say that my experience as it is now is the totality of reality. And if there is other people, I have no access to their experience, no matter what they say, and no matter what I believe, it's always mine. And this allow what you say, Vince, about responsibility. So suddenly everything and everyone is my responsibility directly. And I don't know if it makes sense to some of you.
David, Michael, you got your hand up there.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's an interesting discussion, and I kind of agree with both of you. I agree with Vince about the we can't even imagine what absolute reality is like. The closest we've come to is we know, for example, we know from physics that there is 100 trillion neutrinos passing through our body every second, and we can see them, we can detect them. There is, empty space everywhere. There is quarks, there is electrons, and that's just one layer of reality that our physics is able to detect. And there is all kinds of things. Who knows what else? All kinds of entities and angels, maybe, maybe not. There is so many layers to it. We can't even, expect to get anywhere close to what ultimate reality is.
Mm.
But yeah, the layer, but the layer that we have is we have the layer of beliefs. We have the layers of emotions, we have the layers of mind, and those are the lenses through which we see our reality. So those are the layers we can really work with and clear them, and then life becomes more clear and more direct. But it's not even close to absolute. And I also agree with what David says. Well, I don't know, I would not say it's like this is all that exists, what you experience, but it's like I think it's a very practical and reasonable way to say that, yeah, this is what concerns me. This is what, like you have a limited amount of time, you may have a limited amount of brain power, like our minds are very limited. They cannot comprehend the complexities of reality.
Mm.
So the most practical thing to do is, yeah, just focusing on what is in our experience, what is in our sort of control, and yeah. So that's
If we just notice what we respond to, that is a fantastic place to be able to notice, especially if we can notice without an opinion, without any judgment about what we've noticed. Just noticing, yeah, that's a big thing. So how's this going down for you, Don? Are you with us?
Yeah, thanks. I was trying to consider whether I'm with you or not. I'm confused. But thanks for asking. Yeah, I think it would undermine my whole reason for thinking all day if I thought I didn't have a choice, because then I couldn't criticize myself the whole time for doing the wrong thing for years and years. What would I do all day if I didn't criticize myself for making the wrong choices? I don't know what I would do. So it
Okay, yeah,
I feel
that's big.
feels like
Yeah.
I know the idea that I'm a long way from something is a thought as well, but it really does feel like I'm a long way from seeing that. And sometimes I feel like I see that there's no doer in smaller things, but the determination to believe that everything that I've chosen has been wrong, or that there was loads of other things I could have chosen, and just, oh my God, it's just even now I was just looking, I was even listening to someone else thinking, do I trust my actual experience? If I were responding to you at some point, would I trust my experience, or would I have to go back to my thoughts to figure out if that's true or not and make them some logical response? And I don't even know what the answer to that is. And recently, when I was talking to one of my friends about this whole whatever this is, I have this phrase that I use because I guess I suppose the odd time I might have some kind of clarity at a retreat or whatever, and then something will occur to me that will seem really clear, and I'll often preface saying that by saying this is a bunch of non-dual pretentious bullshit, because I'm so embarrassed at saying I really see this clearly, and there's so much criticism going, I couldn't possibly see that clearly, so I have to make a joke first. And I think some of the stuff I see clearly is pretty fucking clear, but even saying that out loud now is really embarrassing to me. Like, I've judged that so much that I'd much prefer to think my way to an answer rather than tell you what I experienced directly.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, I don't know if that's on the topic, but it just, oh my gosh, yeah, it seems like a long way to trusting my experience. And
Well,
then like just the idea, what I do, like if I wasn't making choices, like I was thinking about that recently. I'm like, be so. I know you mentioned boredom before, but I don't know what I would even do. It just anyway. Sorry, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to point out that you have pretty good insight into yourself. You see what's going on, and that's a great starting point. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I'm trying to look. It's kind of ridiculous. Thank you.
Yeah. I also got the impression that if you stopped criticizing yourself, you would disappear. You would implode into a ball of dust. You'd be like a genie that wouldn't be there anymore. So criticizing yourself is really important to stay alive and solid and keep existing, eh?
It feels like that recently. I don't know what I would do, and yet I have experience of not doing it over, for short periods of time, only periods of hours or a few days, and or even a few months, a long time ago. I have experience of not doing it. And I was like, oh my God, my life is so much easier. I don't even care. Like at one stage, whenever I had some experience 20 years ago, I was thinking that I don't even care what enlightenment is now anymore. If I'm not criticizing myself, just fine. Everything is just fine. I can get on with life. And so I have experience of it, and it just feels like living, just state of flow, kind of curiosity and spontaneity, and just doing regular stuff. I'm like, oh my God, that's just brilliant. I could just do that. I could just wash the dishes and, do the hoovering or something. I'd just be fine. But yeah, but I'm so used to it now. I don't know what yeah, it feels like, I don't know, if I'm rambling on for a second, it feels my whole life is a complete failure. I feel I'm in a really, possibly some non-dual people would say this is a really good place for me. Like everything is disaster at the moment. There's nothing good about my life. So maybe I'm good. But it just feels like if I don't choose to do something or try really hard to fix things, I'll just be stuck in this place where nothing is working. I feel a bit like that. And I have to discipline myself to do the things I need to do or something, which has never flipping worked for the last 30 or 40 years of trying to do that. But I don't know. So I kind of know that if I didn't, I don't know what just can't persuade myself, or whatever that even is, not to do it.
Yep. Do you get this one? This one. Everything that's in your life, everything that's happening to you is a solution. It's not anything else. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a solution. It is you're staying upright, you're staying able to look after yourself. All these things are the result of what's going on for you. But when we have to, because we don't want to take away your ability to criticize yourself. No, you need it. You need it. It's part of the solution. That's an important thing. Love it. Feel good about it. It's working. It's working. It's good for you.
Is it working? I'm not. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm looking for, as usual. I'm looking for, like, say, I will listen to Angelo suggesting watching for the next thought, right? And I'm keep looking for the next. Often seems like there's so many thoughts. It feels like, oh my God, which is the next one? There's too many. But just even yesterday, I was looking. And it seemed like the next thought was, like, maybe unsurprisingly, the next thought was, I'm doing this wrong. And I was like, okay, let's see that one, and then the feeling of the one who's doing it wrong, it really feels like me, because I do everything wrong, just in case you didn't know. And so I can feel like, and then the next thought is, oh, that's an interesting insight. I must use that in my meditation later, some other time in the future. Now in the meantime, I must go and tell someone about that insight because it's so interesting. And so, like, I've been 3 or 4 thoughts that have disappeared away from the present moment into a thought about the future and have gone. And I have to go drag myself back to going, present moment, what's happening? Next thought, I'm doing it wrong. And then we go up to oh my God, it just feels like just dragging myself back to that over and over, kind of going, and the present seems okay. And yet I believe that I have to do something. And oh my God, I mean, I'm sure you've all done this before. I kind of find it ridiculous. Like, the present moment seems okay. And yet I'm determined to believe that it isn't. And something has to be done to fix everything. And I know that fixing everything is disaster, but I'm still doing it, making it worse, and I can't stop. Oh my God.
Oh, it sounds like you should be exhausted.
Fucking am, Jesus. Yeah, and I got up late for this, and I was 5 minutes late, so I criticized myself for the first half an hour for being late for this. Yeah, because I chose to get up late, didn't I?
Oh boy, we can't take your choice away from you. If you if things just happen, you can't criticize yourself for doing it wrong.
It's
Okay.
a familiar one. I'm just a ramble. It's a familiar. Wasn't as strong this morning, but it's a familiar one to me throughout my life. Arriving late for something like, particularly, I guess, in college. If I arrive 5 minutes late for a lecture, and I feel like I don't understand what it's about now because I didn't hear the first sentence, the level of self-criticism just fills my brain so much that I can't hear anything else that happens for the rest of the hour.
Right, yeah.
I'm just completely confused by the criticism is so strong that I can't hear, and it happens to me a lot during the it still happens to me a lot now. I suppose I notice it a lot listening to non-duality talks and stuff because I get distracted and then I think, oh, I missed that now. And if it was a live one, if it's not live, I can rewind, which is great. You can rewind. You can't rewind life so far, I've discovered. So so I have to, if it's live, I have to, and I get really annoyed with myself for missing. Like Francis Lucille, I used to notice, he always said, doesn't matter what you hear because you'll, I always say the same stuff. And I was like, with his guided meditations, he says things once, and then there's a few minutes, and then he says one thing, and there's a few minutes. He leads himself up to a particular thing, and then he says the thing that the whole meditation is about. And if I'm going to miss that, he can be damn sure I'll miss that little thing. And then I've lost the whole meditation. I'm sitting there going, for fuck's sake, wasting my time again. And because I missed that one thing that the meditation is about, and now I don't understand. That's just, yeah, sorry, I'm rambling, but I do that throughout my life. Get distracted, or I'm late, and then I miss the thing, and I get into a spin then going, oh, I missed the whole thing now, and it's a waste of time, and I'm so pissed off. So I managed to calm myself down slightly this morning from that, but I'm just, oh, Jesus. It's going on for too flipping long now. I've been doing this for decades. And I'm tired of it. And I wish I'm supposed to be tired enough of it to stop doing it. That's the thing, isn't it? I'm supposed to be tired or something. I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Thank you, Don, for sharing, because when I'm listening to you, I feel tension in my stomach. I feel tension in my stomach.
Cool,
and I
brilliant.
feel a strong impulse to help you, to give you tips, to do this, to do that. And when I see this, I'm, oh right, I forget that you know everything already, you know, but you like to play this, you know, this game of pour me, pour this, 10 years. But everything you say, it's the whole stuff, you know, it's all process.
Yeah,
There is no more to it. But just like you like, it seems to me that you like to wear this kind of, you know, mask.
Yeah, I think that too. I do. Sounds weird to say that I think I know that. And I go, could I stop
Of course you
doing that?
know it.
Yeah.
Of course you know it. I just wanted to share how I feel, because I think it's more useful than anything else that I can say, because you know everything already. I can hear, I can feel that. I just wanted to see that when you speak, I feel that my system is getting faster, and there's tension in my stomach, and there's a part of me who wants to slow down. That's all I want to share. What I feel when you talk, that's all. Maybe it's useful, maybe not.
Actually, as far as choice, though, I really feel like I have a choice that I'm not making in relation to not being this person with the problem, or the not being the person who gets distracted or something. When I'm at that point of going, I really feel there must be a choice there that I'm failing to make, that I'm not, choose, like you say, if I understand all of this, why am I not choosing out of this? into peace or present momenty something or something. I must be choosing this fucking drama and then telling you all about it because I enjoy being miserable, and then I feel worse. So
And
I do.
and we all enjoy your misery, Don. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
We all
that's my
enjoying very much.
is to entertain. I know.
So Don, I'm interested in when you said it feels to you like there's a choice to be made, that you can flip out of this with a simple choice. I wonder if that I experienced 12 months before I woke up, I experienced a feeling that I was close. I was right on the edge. And that persisted for that whole 12 months, that feeling of on the edge. I even started a blog and I called it On the Verge, because it was like, yes, I knew it was going to happen. Had that feeling that, right now, I didn't know what was going to flip me over. I had no idea, but I wonder if for you, it is a feeling like that you can just flip out of where you are now into something else.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, my main, like most of my thoughts of that nature, my thought is I should be able to choose rather than I don't know whether I feel that I can.
Okay.
But I don't know. But on the other hand, I often feel like there's that black and white. I feel like I've had a few experiences of flicking a switch during not me flicking a switch, but just during some meditation a long time ago, or a few therapy or retreats, that something just changes very quickly, and everything is different after that change of perspective or something. But I don't know how to do that.
You've had your moments, haven't you? And you've seen it, even though it was a long time ago. You can remember that it actually happened, even if you can't remember what it felt like. Maybe you can.
Yeah, pretty well. I can remember that it happened and some bits of how it felt, and there's some smaller bits in between. I just don't know how they came about, I guess. And I'm looking at the resistance to that, or the negative trip that seems to persist and deny that or something, or seems to want to maintain the problem stuff as more entertaining than.
Let's just stop for a second, and let's not say we want to maintain the problem. Let's not label it as the problem, but we all do. It's part of our human organism that there is a built-in maintenance program. We all have an attraction to the familiar, even if, I mean, how many wives that get beaten up by their husband either stay with him or replace him with somebody else who beats them up? It's a crazy one. They prefer the familiar in spite of the pain, right? And it is part of our nature as humans to want to maintain weight. Well, if I'm overweight and I can maintain it without any effort whatsoever, try to lose it, that's another story altogether. Jesus. But anyway, there is this thing of maintaining it, and not only, and this is something I've noticed over the years too. Friends and family will apply pressure to us to not change. They don't want us. They want us to stay the way they know us, regardless of what it's like. They don't want us to be different. We don't want to be different. It's just that's that. And here we are, all of us, confronting that fairly head on.
Yeah. But is there, at the beginning, talking about choice, is there a choice there? There isn't, I suppose. There can't be a choice because we just concluded that an hour ago, right? There isn't a choice whether to continue in the misery that you're used to or to do something different.
That's the crazy thing, isn't it? So we beat ourselves up because we're there, but we can't do anything different.
I wanted to say I just love your sense of humor. And I know you know everything about. I wanted to ask if you've tried to be late on the purpose or to do something wrong on purpose, and how did it go? What was the experience?
Oh, I see. Well, yeah, I'm not sure if I just, yeah, maybe sometimes I decide it's okay to be late, and then sometimes that's okay. On the other hand, I sometimes, and then if I might arrive a bit late and like today, discover I'm halfway through the conversation and go, oh no, I shouldn't have, because I missed the beginning as I just described. So I don't know. Sometimes it's okay and to relax about it, and other times I have the same kind of criticism thing. But yeah, I do, yeah, I don't know how that, but I am back to that question about the choice. I know we talked about choice, but I still feel bad that I should be choosing a different approach to life rather than this one that's familiar, that isn't enjoyable. I genuinely feel like I should be choosing the other one, or the better one, or the whatever one we're talking about here. I should be choosing this one rather than the one I'm used to. Why am I turning up here and not choosing to do anything different? It's ridiculous. And yet I'm not, there's no choice. Fucking hell. I mean,
I think to me, the way you approach choice is not functional. Because if you feel that you have choice, great. Just see what happens. You know, in the Course in Miracles, it's well, anyway, it's very interesting because he talk about attraction of guilt. You know, like we have a strong attraction to guilt, to pain, to suffering. And one thing is the process is to reduce to the time between our choice and the suffering. So we understand that every choice we make, it leads to suffering. So the whole process to me is not really about choosing differently. It's really to see that what you choose lead yourself to suffering. You know, and the more I watch myself, the more I can see my behavior, my patterns, which pattern lead to suffering. And when I see this pattern more clearly, when I see that one pattern lead me to suffering, this pattern kind of naturally stop. So it's all about, it's about seeing, but it's about reducing the time between I choose this action and after I suffer because of this choice. This time kind of reduce, and at some point you can see that you are not choosing someone, you're not choosing to be late, you are choosing to suffer. And now when you see that, it just change. But this whole question about are you sure, then like Vince say, it's just drop it, you know. I mean, sometimes it's very good to talk about this, sometimes not. So you see what is the best path for you. But I want to share also that I have a strong impulse to in compulsion to suffering and to bad behavior. Like when I eat spicy, I feel pain, and I'm eating spicy all the time. So it's stupid, right? But there we go. So yeah.
I want to add, because you said that sometimes it's okay to be late, but I was asking about being late on purpose when you feel it's wrong, but you plan to do it. You mean, I mean consciously plan to do something wrong. It is a paradoxical approach, but it can have interesting results.
yeah, I don't know if I can think of an example. I'll have to think. of when I've done. As I say, I've yeah allowed myself not to do things perfectly, I guess, but to decide to do things wrong. I'm not sure if that's the same thing as yeah. I mean, I've done well. I don't know. It's not the same thing as you're saying. I mean, in work, I would find that I would have wanted to do everything perfectly for a long time, and then I realized at some point I don't have time to do everything perfectly, and I do things faster and faster sometimes. And then I'm going, oh fuck it, I'll do the quick thing, and if they don't like it, they can tell me. And the quick thing takes about a quarter of the time, and it's usually okay. So I'm going, that's fine. I'll have more time off because I can let my colleagues spend hours and hours second guessing and redrafting and talking to their colleagues. I'll just do it in 20 minutes and I'll be finished. And it kind of works. It's not exactly the same as doing it wrong, is it? No, but it's still like undoing some of my determination to be perfect. It works kind of okay, but it's not the same maybe as I can't think of an example exactly of what you're suggesting right
Yes,
now.
but I guess the first time you decided to do it quickly, there was a feeling I'm doing it wrong, and then the result was it was
Yeah.
fine enough. So yeah, it's
It was
something like that.
Yeah, so
that
what,
was yeah.
one of the things that Bianca's suggesting is do it differently. Just right. What seems like a choice, behave as if you have a choice, be courageous if you require that, and
Yeah.
do it differently just to see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, I'll see
Out
if
of
I
the
can.
familiar, out of the normal way of doing things.
Yeah, it is about the feeling that I have control, and I know there will be some bad consequences, and I accept these consequences because it is my choice.
Yeah.
So of course it's and I do not propose anything serious like ruining your life.
Yeah.
With the small things.
Let me see. I'll have a look and see what I can find as examples in the next few days and see if that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only examples kind of come to mind now are various times I would decide or choose, seemingly, I don't know, not to do certain things that I feel I should do today, and I'm okay with that. But they accumulate over time, and there's a longer list of things I should have done that I need to get back to, paying bills and filling out forms and fixing something on my computer, all those things that I decide not to do today, even though I should. The anxiety just builds up over time until I have to do them.
Mm.
And and I do them, and
But
maybe the anxiety is unnecessary, but
that all feels familiar to you, doesn't it?
yeah. And I think like when I was younger, a long time ago, I would do everything immediately. And I felt better all the time. And then kind of my life fell apart where it was impossible to do everything. It seemed impossible to get everything done. Whereas when I was younger, up to, I don't know, well, yeah, up to 12 and then up to 20, I was able to get everything done when I decided to. And it was everything was kind of under control to some extent, not in a kind of an absolute way, but just a regular life way. Things were kind of under control. And I knew I could turn up to places on time and I could pay my bills and things, and everything was. And then just so many things have fallen apart. I just can't seem to get everything lined up. And I don't think I'm even talking about obsessive levels of control. I'm talking about regular life stuff. If you came here, you'd be disgusted by how untidy and messy and a disaster my house is. And not really in control of things the way a regular person in their 50s is, really. There's too much shit to do that I haven't done. And I used to be a bit OCD and everything was tidy and clean and nice, and maybe that's too much, but I can't do that. I can't seem to do that, and I really want to get back there to going. I know where my stuff is, my bills are paid, my house is clean and tidy, everything's okay. The regular stuff is being done. I'm not. It just feels like a constant disaster of crises, minor, little things. like I didn't pay my house insurance in December because I was away, so I have to ring them next week, and it's going to be a week or two, and that's only tiny, but like all these little things are there's lots of those little things that I haven't done, and all of them make me really anxious. And I used to be, as I say, used to have those under control up to my 20s, I think. I think it was working, I'm rambling, working in an office has stressed me out so much for the past 25 years that I just can't keep everything together anymore. I just can't manage all the, and you think all the security of having a proper job and paying a mortgage and shit would make me feel better. Oh my God. I just feel so overwhelmed with stress now after doing all those responsible things. It feels like I was more relaxed in my 20s when I was on the dole. Anyway, sorry. I'm just talking.
Don't be sorry. That's good. Yeah.
David has his hand up, I think, right, David?
Oh yeah.
Thanks, David. Yes.
I guess I just wanted to say that what comes up for me when I hear Don talk is a sense of skipping over the first step, like a persistent refusal for attention to rest at the first step and put all the other considerations aside.
This sounds right-ish to me. Which
Uh,
is
you
the first step?
that was my question. I wonder what is the first step, what your response is to that question.
I mean, the only one that comes to mind is just staying here, just being present, just not starting thinking or doubting or whatever I would do.
And then what is that?
First step in mind, David?
Is what's found when you just stay there?
Seems just, I hesitate to say peace is found, silence, presence, and then just tons of doubt that it's going to be any good. So I have to almost battle my way to stay here. But right now, I can stay.
And doubt is thinking.
Yeah. I need to do something. I need to figure something out. I need to solve some problem. I need to have a plan, blah, 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 or whatever. Or I need to, understand something further towards awakening, whatever that is.
And that is skipping the first step.
Yeah.
So attention just refuses to sit there.
Kind of. So yeah, and that's what I feel I do a lot is I try and do, I haven't done as much meditation the last few weeks, but try and sit and meditate and drag myself back to the present over and over and over to train myself to stay here, because I determine, my mind, whatever it is determined to be distracted. And I have to drag it back and train it. And I've been really, like, as I say, with gritted teeth for the past 2 years, just sitting for hours going, I'm just going to fucking sit here and come back to the present moment. And it depends how much energy I have to do that, but I keep trying to do it.
My mind, and I keep trying, is skipping the first step.
Okay.
What's coming up for me is that even saying it as the first step, my mind assumes that it's the first of many steps, but it's the main step. It's the step that if you stay on that first step without thinking about all of the subsequent steps.
Then I could say prior to the first step.
That's good. I do have, yeah, thank you. That's really, I do have a question, if I can go on for a second. So if I'm not just criticizing myself for not choosing this, right? But if in the past few months, it's been possible to stay, I think at this step for some time, or at least come back more easily sometimes, not always gritting my teeth. But then a thought comes, or a question comes that says, I need to figure something out. I need to understand something. I need to see through something. Like I need to take steps in the direction of awakening. Does merely staying present, is that enough? Do I need to see through something?
Can you hear me well? Can you hear me well?
What?
Or there is too much noise? There is
I
noise?
can hear you. Yeah, no, I can hear you.
I think I really like the approach of David, of what I understand. Like you are skipping the first step again.
Okay. So just staying.
It's not just
almost
staying, it's staying.
Not just
Just
staying.
is skipping the first step already.
So what do you see the
Oh.
first step as, Don? What are you getting from this? What is that first step?
It seems to be being present without trying to figure anything out.
Okay. That's a huge thing you're asking yourself. You're asking yourself not to get diverted by your mind. You're asking yourself, to do things that don't come naturally to you. And so what I would propose as a version of that, the same thing, but the idea of being present, of being in the now, will be a side effect rather than the intention. Okay, so make the intention to not judge, not have an opinion about what comes up. And of course you will, that'll happen. But with the intention not to, you will be in the present, because you will be looking at what comes up rather than being involved with what comes up. Do you follow that? You'll see it,
I do.
a little bit more objectively.
I have to take a note of that. It sounds like a thing I'll forget somehow. I have to take a note. So notice not to judge. I see. I've forgotten immediately. I knew it was a thing I would forget. Sorry.
Yes.
But
Yep. Don't worry. I want feedback from everybody as well about this, but that just seems to me that as a habitual doer of things, to try and stop that habit straight off is a big ask. But the stopping of that habit as a side effect is fine. So if you make your intention to be aware of what's come up, of what goes on, of thoughts, of impulses, and not to judge them. So, if you do judge them, don't judge the fact that you've judged them. Right? That goes on and on forever. But so, okay, everything is okay. Whatever comes up is okay. We want to be aware of what comes up, but it doesn't matter if we don't. that's also okay, because at some point we will become aware that we were not aware of it when it came up, so that you'll always get to that good point. So the idea is to not have an opinion about what comes up, because your natural habit is to always to be critical of whatever comes up. So the idea is the intention is to not have an opinion about it. But there's another intention hanging off that, and that is that if you do have an opinion about it, that's okay. Try not to have an opinion about the fact that you had an opinion about it. So guess what? When you're considering what is coming up, you are in the present without any effort. You're not trying to be in the present. You just are in the present because you're being aware of what's coming up in order to not have an opinion about it. Is that too?
And just, I have few battery, but I just wanted to add to be very practical with what Vince said. To help you, you can focus on the word, because the words like just, I shouldn't, I must, and there's many words that point toward criticism. So when they arise, you can say, oh, the mind is in the state of criticism. So it can be, you can recognize easier. I just want to, maybe this is very practical, it can be helpful. Sorry, Vince.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. Does that fit with your thoughts, David, about the beginning?
I think it's a tricky, because I hear you saying that, using the word you to Don, and I realize there's a necessity in that, but
Yes.
it seems like that's the crux of Don's dilemma. The you, that people are speaking to him, people are here speaking to a you that for him feels like I, me. And that's never the consideration that I is not there. It seems like that's attention is refusing to entertain that.
I suspect it might be a little bit down the track for Don to get at that one. He's had glimpses of that. He knows about that, but yes, there's a trap in that one, I feel, and that is that we can easily bypass by saying, well, of course there's nobody to do that. But that's a diversion as well, isn't it? That's off into the wrong thing. So in the background, of course, all of these stories have other stories hanging off them, and in the background, of course, there is the story that the only existence of an I is as a story.
But it feels like
Go on.
it feels like something to be done.
Oh yes, he's very solid in his criticism of himself. Yes.
And that's illusory. It has to be.
Oh, it's delusory, I think. It's a delusion at the moment.
And it's
I'm
always
sort of balancing in the funny place of what seems like presence, and yet there's this feeling of me that's very persuasive, that I'm sort of whoever I am, observing, and sort of knowing that I'm present, and yet knowing there's a strong determination that I am this me, and I'm noticing that at the same time. I'm kind of slightly wondering why I believe I'm this me, because it's an object that I can observe. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just sitting there watching that for a long time, for months.
Again, just a skillful technique is to not chase thoughts about why that's happening, but rather to examine what is it that's happening. So when you go, you can almost, there's almost a tangibility to this me that you feel, right?
Yeah.
So chase it down. Where do you feel it? What does it feel like? What part of the body does it exist in? Does it shift? Is it changing? Is it pleasant, unpleasant? Has it got a color involved? Is it, all of that? Track down what it is, this feeling that says, oh, it's a substantial me.
Yeah, I've been doing, to be honest, I've been doing that. I remember when I actually came across Angela first, it was just over a year ago. And I remember sitting and doing this very thing, finding the feeling of me and just pursuing it for hours and hours. And I've been in some sense doing that for a year on and off. So I keep doing that on different things, but I do that and I feel, and it changes and moves around so many times that I have to conclude that there's either no me or there's a million of them, and they just change and they move, and there seems to be so much evidence that there's no permanent me. It's just a different character and different story, different position in my body, a different feeling that just dissolves, and then another feeling of me appears somewhere else, and then that dissolves, and seems to be so much evidence that there isn't a permanent one. And yet there's a determination to believe. Almost the thing I've got to recently, I may have said that the thing I've got to recently is that there's like a belief or a thought that's a bit like my father's voice that says, I don't care how much evidence you find that there's no self. You just have to believe that there is one.
Yes.
And you have no choice, as it were, or you cannot escape from that feeling or belief with anything you do, with evidence, with any clarity, you just must believe this.
I can just see you, Don. I can just see you
like
knocking on my front door and say, have you got time to talk to me about the existence of me? It sounds religious is what I'm saying. What you're saying is about faith. It's about what you're going to hang on to, regardless of any scientific evidence.
It's ridiculous. I know. I remember hearing Paul Hederman talking about faith, and it felt like a real challenge. And I thought, gosh, I successfully overcame my belief in God completely in a matter of a short number of years, to the point where I was going, point a gun at me. I'm not afraid of death or anything. I've just overcome all of that. I'm an atheist. That's the end. And now I'm like, oh, I believe this. What the fuck? Yeah.
So it's usually the other way around, people grow up in an authoritarian atmosphere and they hold their father, or usually their father, not always, in great esteem. And then when they get to an adult, they have to shift that authority to somebody else. And frequently it goes to God as the authority, but if not God, to the government or whatever. Yeah. But you've substituted God for Don, or Don for God. So got rid of God, but now you've got Don.
It must be there's some friend of mine, I think I said this to you a week ago. Somebody was saying to me recently, if I always identify as the victim in here, then maybe I should also look at the perpetrator in here, the one who criticizes, the one who creates fear or whatever, and see if I can find that one. If I found, whatever one is like my dad in here and does that. Anyway, sorry, I keep on, I am doing that. I think I'm doing the things that you're suggesting, but I just find it strange that after so long that I'm just this contention that there's a me here appears to just kind of shrug its shoulders and go, no, I don't care. If you, and it does, as I say, it does feel like, when I'm just repeating myself, it kind of does feel like my dad in a funny way. It's like, I don't want spontaneity. I don't want curiosity. I don't want you, whatever you naturally being yourself is. That's absolutely no consequence. I want what I want, and that's what we're going to have here in this life, is what I want, this thought created, whatever. And now that's just feels like such a strong thing that I was taught, that I don't know how to, even if I see the evidence of beingness and presence and stuff that's so clear sometimes, the belief that I can't go there or stay there, or that's not allowed, feels quite strong sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if that's even true, but sometimes it feels like that's part of it.
Yeah, look, it may well be that this something that your interpretation of your father's whatever behavior back when you were really young may have been where all this stuff started. Who knows? Who cares? It doesn't matter. Now it's irrelevant. You don't need to actually dig out the original thing, although it may well reveal itself when you've got enough shit off the top of it for it to come up. But we don't really need to, and it doesn't matter about any of that. What I keep coming back to is you be happy, accepting and happy, even joyful. I mean, that'll sound stupid really, about what comes up, regardless of what comes up. Don't have an opinion about it. Be curious as to what it is, not why it's there, not how it got there, but what it actually is, right? And even that, don't do that with the intention of getting some result. It's just there's really nothing else to do but be a little bit interested in the fact that it's happening, not what's happening, but the fact that it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be relaxed. Just be relaxed.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Dawn, one question. I'm not sure if I asked you the last time or I only thought about it. Did you ever try to use a mantra?
Yeah, a long time ago. I guess I was involved in a Tibetan Buddhist center for a long time. So it was lots of chanting I did sometimes for that. And it sort of helped, I suppose, sometimes. Yeah, there was all kinds of chanting and not just, I haven't gone back to a smaller mantra for a long time, but I did. And it kind of helped sometimes, but you could spend hours chanting and chanting away, and sometimes it would calm me down. But it would have to be fairly intense as usual, like most things, black and white, and I would have to go after it for hours at a time to almost distract myself without realizing I was doing it or something. But sometimes it helped a bit, but it took a fair bit of time.
So what would be a good mantra for you, Don? What about Don's okay?
Yeah. Sounds like a joke. Maybe I should use that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, something like that maybe would be okay, would it? Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, yeah. I think there's a few people with their hands up now.
Yeah. Oh, look, I don't know about these hands up people. I keep not seeing them. Just jump in. Don't ask permission to talk. Go on, Bianca. Tell us what you. Yeah.
Actually, I'm right.
Okay.
Actually, I raised my hand because maybe I'm going to change the subject. So I just didn't want to interrupt. I want to wait till you guys finish your topic.
Okay.
Well, something that Don was saying resonated with me, and it was like we are talking about the feelings, meditation, but well, because my story is similar, but I was very organized as a child, and then my life became messy, and my home is messy, and my paperwork is piling, and yeah, it's like I can sit all day and talk about feelings, but in the end, yes, it's what you said, that you feel uncomfortable with all this mess, and this feeling won't go away. no matter how long I will meditate on it. It's just something has to be done. Yes, when I'm hungry, I need to eat. Okay, not good example. Hunger goes away after a time. But well, when I have to go to toilet, I have to go to toilet. And yeah, it's like someone said that in the suttas, when a monk had a hole in the roof, Buddha didn't told him, sit down and meditate on sound of the raindrops. Just fix your roof. So, and it's also it is difficult for me to get all this mess. But I know it needs to be done more than meditating on this mess. So I'm just interested now how you will deal with your things, because it's a problem I share.
Yeah.
And I see you have at least one corner of your home tidy. So I don't know what's behind these doors. No.
Yeah. It's not too bad. I know it's funny.
Yeah.
I do have that in between that choice on between like meditating on, calming down, not thinking too much about everything, and actually doing stuff. And I often nearly always find that doing stuff makes me a lot calmer than sitting and meditating to calm down. Like, or fixing things and doing, yeah. And the things I'm worrying, doing something about the thing I'm worrying about usually makes it better faster than sitting and meditating and telling myself not to worry. But anyway.
Go, Matthias.
Yes, I was thinking about before the meeting, I was eager to speak about an insight I had about a romantic story I had, but now you today before you spoke about diversion, and I was began to think in it. The main, just to resume the story, the problem with the girl was that I wanted to feel special, but this was a diversion. And while you guys were talking, I began to think about it, and I got to the conclusion that actually everything in our lives is a diversion. I remembered that when I was 7 years old, I acquired the habit of, when I went to bed, to think about stories and to be the main character. I realized, oh wow, this is so cool, this is so much better. But now I'm thinking, better than what? What was the diversion that kid was trying to do? Because if you reflect a little bit, I was 7 years old. What problem? Or there's no truly an ego already constructed. There is not much self-talking, but a child with such a young age was already trying to divert from something, and now I am just bogged down on that. I think that maybe if I can access exactly what is this distraction, maybe this is going to just shift. No more need of meditation and all of this. That's the insight I'm having right now. It's just about some kind of primordial diversion that maybe all of us have. I don't know if this is just with me. Maybe if someone would be able to point me out exactly what is kind of primordial diversion or distraction is, maybe things will just fall up away just half a second, you know. So any pointers, Vince?
Well, I think that all kids suffer, even to the point where you could describe what the experience of all kids as being abused just by the nature of our, and of course I'm talking always about myself, but just by the nature of things, when a child can't, when a child has a desire, it's a big thing. It's immediate and it's big and it's all encompassing. And when they don't get that fulfilled, if they can't have ice cream when they want ice cream, or they can't go out and play when they want to, or they can't stay inside when they want to, whatever they can't do, that's their whole life. And I've also come to realize that, you know, people feel the intensity of emotion about total garbage the same as if they would if they were on a battlefield facing annihilation. The intensity of the emotion can be just as big over nothing. You know, take people having a political argument. People are prepared to kill each other over who's right and who's wrong. You know, it's just crazy. But what I'm saying is that the intensity of the emotion that a child goes through over something as trivial as simply not getting something they want, not being able to do what they want, feeling, I remember feeling controlled a lot as a child. I could never be spontaneous because I was too noisy, or I was in somebody's face or whatever, you know. So it was constant. It was always there. And it's like, it sounds like a bad place, a wrong thing, but in fact, it's something that every child goes through, I imagine. And consequently, it's the very thing that we are freeing ourselves of now. That's what this is about, in a way. It's freeing ourselves of the things that we've developed, the habits that we've developed. And of course, yeah, I remember, wow, I can really relate to what you say, Matthias. It was in a book for me, books. I read avidly as a child. I read a book a day. Every single day I read 7 books a week. And it never stopped for years and years and years. I used to read as I walked to school in primary school, and I read as I walked home. I read at lunchtime. I read books all the time, and it was my escape. I built a world, and I remember actually thinking at one stage, and I can even remember I was walking home from school when I thought it, that the world inside my head was so much better than the real world. I remember thinking that, because the real world was it was painful. I was picked on, and I was never good enough for other people, and I was, you know, whatever, you know. So but the world in my head, yeah, I was always in a great place in there. Yeah. Yeah. So that unpleasant feeling, of course we want to get away from it, and we will use whatever means we've got available to us to escape it. Whether it's Don doing things works for Don, being active. For somebody else, it might be watching television. Somebody else, it might be eating. Somebody else, it could be, well, you think of whatever you like, and somebody will be using it. It's always escape. And partly it's because it's because we don't get to see clearly what it is we're escaping from that it seems so big and dark. The moment we shine the light of investigation on it, it doesn't hold up, falls apart really quickly. But they're just words. We've got to actually get to doing that for it to happen.
I have found this notion of things being a diversion so fascinating because I remember the first thing that came up was just like, wait, what the hell am I diverting from? Like I'm so unconsciously diverting from something that it's been so fascinating to just sit and look for the thing because I don't even know it's there.
Yep. Yeah, so there's a turning point that happens, and I was kind of alluding to it with Don a bit, but yes, I wrote something earlier when I was guiding somebody about that, and it's like when the response to a thought is, oh, look at that, that's interesting. When we get to that, rather than being sucked into the content of it immediately, that's a huge fulcrum point. That's where we can just change. That's a cliff we fall over. So that the point of recognizing that this thing has happened, and isn't it interesting? Or I mean, my initial response is to say, and I wonder why it's happened, but don't go down that why it's happened, just go down what is it. But yes, it's interesting, and we're talking about the fact that a thought has occurred, not what the thought's about, just the fact that that particular thought popped up. That's where the interest is. That changes things. Just
When
sucked in.
when Matthias asks about or mentions I think he said primal diversion, my mind goes to primordial.
Yes.
So in it, I think of what I know, what little I know of attachment theory, and which looks at the attachment between the mother and child. And there are three types. There's secure, insecure, and I blank on the third, but there are experiments with, basically they just leave a mother and child in a strange room and observe how soon and how far how comfortable that child is in venturing away from the mother. And in that you can read the nature of that mother-child bond. And that is where our primary sense of security comes from. The insecure child will be petrified of letting go of the mother because they don't have that basic sense of security. So the primordial diversion, I think, is annihilation. Without that basic security, the child is vulnerable to annihilation. The secure child will, much sooner they will start taking steps away. They'll go venturing farther away from the mother and explore the room. And a quick glance back at the mother will be enough to reestablish that connection. So you can see that in people's personalities. I think I had a very insecure attachment, and a lot of the character structure, you can see how that's formed based on that fundamental level of security and sense of well-being in the world. So later threats in life are interpreted through that first lens of and rejection. Fear of rejection becomes fear of annihilation, because rejection by the mother is equal to annihilation. It would be death.
And as you're saying that, David, I'm thinking this obviously means that we've activated that our survival part of the brain. We're operating from this amygdala, I think it's called, the backpack part of the top of the spine, where it's flight, fright, freeze, and something else. Yeah.
John Bowlby is the name of the doctor who did, I think, some of the first research on, I think he's considered the father of attachment theory. He's
Yes,
very,
in the attachment theory that I read, there is 4 like disorganized, like it's completely a mess like me, and there is avoidance, which avoid life. There is ambivalent, which is always changing, and there is secure. And I want to add also to what David said, that we forgot in Occidental country, but birth it's a thing of death of the child, of the body, and many children die usually, now less, but it's a very strong process for the body itself, and there is many imprints who get into the body at this moment also, which of course continue after with attachment theory. So yeah, I think this is very interesting, this annihilation and fear of death, because of course, if you let a baby alone, he die. And even if you give him food, if you don't touch him, if you don't give emotional and tenderness and touch the baby, he die also. So it's very a baby. It's a baby human. It's very needy of outside environment.
and
Excuse
you
me,
can see all levels of impairment and dysfunction that flow from that, the nature of that bond, where if the proper kind of affection and communication isn't there, it's debilitating, and the development just doesn't occur. And I see that in myself.
Yep. Well, we're all fucked up. It's just a case of how much, eh? Yeah.
I want to add because I don't know you, Mateus, but when I come to non-duality, I come because I was in a very emotional distress and life situation that it was not working for me. So I started spirituality to survive in a way, because there was no other path that worked. And for many years, I just criticized the therapy, you know. But I have to say, I've done many therapy. Not all are very functional, but there are some that are very functional, very great. And I think it's not because we are in a kind of spiritual trip, whatever that means, or spiritual path, that therapy or working with our human part is very important also. And just to support that thought, I would say that when you say that there is distraction with your partner or with this woman, and distraction of this, I will start to find out more and more that all of my experience, in a way, is a distraction. All of it, all of the bliss that you feel, all of it, it's a distraction. Everything is a distraction. And when you arrive at that point, and I think that's where you are, you can feel that it's the opposite, that all of your experience reveal God to you. It's a revelation. Because so I don't know if you understand or if you feel what I'm talking about.
Yes, I understand. That's because the extremes, they are like I don't know the exact, if that's the correct word in English, but like a horseshoe, you know. In the extremes, they began to approximate and not to, you know, it's not a line, it's like a circle, you know. The far you go to the extreme, the more you touch the beginning. So basically, the more you go to nothingness, you're going to fullness, the fullness of things, right? So that's the thing. The more, since everything is a distraction, you know, that means that actually that's just life. It's the way how it is. It's God, so to speak. The way
No,
you're.
I mean, what I'm trying to share in a very practical way, it's for example, I have a child, okay, and often I want to do stuff and I can't because of the rhythm of my child, okay. So often I feel my child like he's a problem or he's a distraction to what I want to attain, to reach, right? But in fact, this experience is exactly what I need in the moment. This is what I'm trying to share. For example, another very practical example, I'm traveling, right? And sometimes I want to see stuff in cities and I can't because time, because we are sick, because everything. And my mind say, oh, you are missing, something is missing, you know, you can't reach something. But in fact, this is the travel, you know, not succeeding in visiting stuff, buildings is the travel. This is your travel, you know. Your conflict with your partner is your travel, is your experience, it is not at some point, it is not a distraction. It is used to show you what we talk about, these annihilation thoughts and patterns and sensation in you.
So another
That's
way
my
to
take.
put that would be, when shit comes up, it's an opportunity.
Thank you, Vince. I talked for 5 minutes and you just ruin everything.
Yes, I agree. I agree on that.
And the good meme to keep in mind is don't engage with the why or the how questions, just the what. So when we say, why, oh, why does this happen? It's a diversion again. But if you say, what is happening? That's not a diversion. That's being in the present. How are you traveling, Ramiz? Are you there?
Hello.
Hi. You tell me if you want me not to engage with you when your screen is blank, just tell me that you don't want to. If you just want to lurk, that's fine.
It's okay. I've been doing what you told me about being in my sensations without labeling. And it feels like it's too big, that the sensation is like an ocean.
Yeah.
And my mind keeps like pulling away to the head, to the stories. But I feel like there is some kind of enjoyment of the sensation. There is a sense of letting go, but not completely. There is still a sense of control, trying to reach out some relief. Yeah.
Okay. Mm. How much effort are you putting into doing what you're doing?
Not much. But I feel like I can't even ignore my sensation anymore. Like I'm feeling my body all the time. It's like I can't even distract myself.
Yep.
It's very prominent, very strong or intense.
Yes, yes. Immediate. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like there's a vibration, endless vibration in the body.
Mm. Are you?
Do you mind if I ask, sorry, can I ask how you did that, Ramiz? Because you only started that a week ago or something. I've been trying to do that for a few weeks, and all I get is distraction, thinking and emotion and everything, and the constant sense that I'm not actually feeling my sensations, which sounds ridiculous because they're here. And yet you now say I can't even distract myself. I feel the sensations all the time. So I'm feeling very jealous, Ramiz. I want to be able to do that. Can you describe to me how you got to that so that you
I,
can do it easily?
I think I'm trying to do feel my sensation for a long time, and it's like became like a habit, like going to the sensation, and it becomes like automatic. I'm just aware of the sensation, and also at first I wasn't really in touch with my body at all. I wasn't sensing my body or my feelings, and I was always caught like in my head all the time. But now it's like I'm more aware of my sensation, and it's difficult because the intensity increased, and and I think it's like going to the head is like try to make some relief of the intensity of the anxiety or the fear, and but then the intensity increased to the degree that you can't even ignore it now. You have to feel it.
Are you finding that you have an opinion about that when it happens? Do you judge it?
There are a lot of sensations or feelings, but no judgments. Just maybe a feeling of helplessness or a feeling of I can't control this sensation. I can't
Yes,
tell it to do what I want.
Okay. So the next step, and it is a further thing. So it's great that this is happening for you like this, even if sometimes it's not pleasant. The next step is to appreciate that what you are feeling is a result of your interpretation of what's going on. So those sensations that you experience themselves rest on stories. You feel the sensations that you are feeling because of your interpretation, because of the perspective that you look at things from. And there's no right or wrong in any of that. It's just the next level is that those sensations themselves are not the beginning of anything. They're the result of something. And you don't have to worry about what they are. Just have the appreciation that those sensations are themselves an expression of something. That we don't need to know what that something is. We don't need to track it down. Just the fact that those sensations themselves are the result of an interpretation that happens from as a result of the perspective that you see things from. So now we've got down to something solid like sensations. Now we're cutting the legs out from underneath them as well. So that's just something for you to play with for a while.
Vince, what would you say connected to what you are saying now about, because I can feel more and more that sensation are just thoughts with localization.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's oh God, it's such a hard trick, isn't it? So it's like we're in a spiral and we've just gone down one level, one circle around down to so we're in the same spot we were before, but we're down a step in this spiral as it goes down. So yes, so I don't want to. Yeah, it's really easy to kind of, or hard not to jump ahead too much. Where we will get to eventually is that absolutely everything is a construct. The world and other people and everything is your construct. But that's just sounds like almost like religious bullshit at this stage. You know, it's just, but it is something we'll get to eventually. But now it's too big a step. Not for you, David, but it's too big a step for a lot of us to take to go straight there. We've got to go there slowly. So the first step, the fundamental thing is the grossness of our thoughts is an avoidance from what's actually going on. We don't need to know what's actually going on, but we just see the way that we avoid engaging with what's actually going on, using thoughts, using activity, using whatever we can to divert from that. Once we no longer divert and we can get down to, as Ramiz has done, get down to the raw sensations, then the next step is to appreciate that they are also the result of something that we believe, which of course is identification with the self. It is what we believe about us. And while we hold on to that, you know, I am Vince. I had this life. I'm built like this. I look like this. I think like this. You know, once we get, there's so many layers of that deep down. No matter, you know, we think we've seen through self. We haven't seen through self by any means. We've seen through a bulk, a big part of it, but there's always these remnants that we don't know about until they get triggered. And when they get triggered, we get the opportunity to see them, and we can look at them and they'll go away, you know, usually. So it's a never ending process. Well, process isn't right, but it's never ending, that's for sure. So anyway, yeah, I'm just waffling now.
I feel like the body has its own like narrative or story, the sensations.
Yes, yeah, it does.
It's like maybe it has a direct connection with trauma, maybe, or like these programs, beliefs. It's like the reaction or the response, fight, flight, freeze.
Yeah. Yeah, so in a way, even though we may not be engaging our more primitive brain center in the survival thing, we're using our cognitive frontal brain to think. We're still achieving the same thing we did when we were in a flight or fright situation. You know, we're still survival. It is still survival. And there's a really interesting irony, and that is that people need to have a certain stability of ego before we can do something about it. If they haven't got that to begin with, then it's not appropriate for them to go down this path. So we need that. We need that. We've got to be strong to be killed, so to speak. A funny way to put it, but yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Gee, I get really high on this stuff. It just feels so good to experience. And interesting with sensations, when we start looking at sensations, I don't know about you guys, but when I look at my sensation, you know, when I get down to a sensation that's devoid of thought, that's without thoughts, without that, just the sensation, it's really hard to pinpoint it. It's just has no boundaries. It has no edge to it. It has no defining, and it's moving all the time and changing all the time. It's sensations are amazing, and we talk about sensations like they're just feelings, but these feelings of mine have color, and they have, I was going to say have sound. Do they have sound? I don't know. It feels like I hear them as well as see them, as well as feel them. They run across more than one sense modality. They're not confined for me to either a feeling or a sound or a sight or whatever. They bleed into each other. It's kind of weird. I don't know.
Something weird I found about my body sensations is that because every time I hear someone talking about describing how to locate feelings, you know, that is narrative plus body sensations, and they give an example like something in the belly or pressure in the chest. Okay, I have this kind of localization, but it's not exactly specific, like a pressure in the chest. Okay, it seems that somehow it is attached to the body map of the chest, but it's not exactly like here or here. No, it's just you know, I can't exactly pinpoint where it is. So at certain point, I thought that I was kind of sensation numb, that this wasn't fully developed in me. But actually, I realized that this is not important because I can recognize exactly the sensation and the feeling, and I can work from that. I don't need to exactly pinpoint where it is. You know, I just have to sense it.
Yep. And it's really interesting if you take a sensation like, say, hunger is an interesting one. You know, you get hunger, and so you go, well, is it really hunger? And then you realize that that's just the story part of it, the hunger thing, that the actual sensation is kind of in the stomach area. But if you're looking at it, it's not, it doesn't end there. It doesn't begin there. It's like, that's just where the biggest bulk of it might be. And even then it can be upper stomach or lower stomach, or it can be moving around. Yes. So I agree. You know, there's no real clear cut thing that we can say, you know, even though we talk like there is, it's not, in my experience. I don't know how other people experience it, but sounds like we have something of the same, Matthew.
Yeah, it's the same for me.
One thought exercise that I found really interesting is to try to think about what it would be like having been born completely blind and not having any sense of a visual map of my body, and what that experience of existence must be like as an adult to have
Actually, I have some. Oh, okay, may finish.
No, go ahead.
No, actually, I have something quite interesting about that. Actually, I don't know if you meditate, but if you really pay attention into it, it seems kind of that the touch sensation of our body is processed in the same consciousness area that our vision. I realized that for all these 2 years that I've been meditating with my eyes closed, I thought that I was imagining my body. But actually, at some point, I realized that I wasn't imagining. I was actually seeing with my skin sensations. It's quite strange to explain. So basically, what I think that might happen with a blind person is that they can actually see with their other senses, except for color. If you can notice that your skin sensation can actually create a three-dimensional perspective. You know, try, if I don't know if you meditate, try to realize that you can actually see your body with your skin. That's quite amazing.
I read about a Frenchman who was blind, and he all his book he talked about color, you know, because he said that his experience was that his eyes couldn't see, but he said that color has nothing to do with the eyes, you know. And it was from a blind man. So when I read this book, I was, why this? It seems that he was living in a beautiful dimension, you know. And I have eyes and I'm miserable. So, so why? What's happening with those eyes, you know? And yeah, just to share this. But about sensation, to me, it's true that what I find beautiful about experience in general and sensation also, it's like it's this seemingly paradox, you know, like there is clearly an experience of a body, which is some kind of vibrant sensation for everyone, you know. And of course, neither small nor big, it's just what it is. At the same time, you cannot localize anything specific. So it's clearly here, but there's no specific. At the same time, it's specifically what you feel. So it's true that it's beautiful to feel this paradox and to be at peace with it. You know, like to really just, oh yeah, it's enjoyable. You know, it's this, and it's very nice. Thank you, Ramiz, because I feel that your sharing have really changed my mood. So thank you for sharing.
Isn't the only way we can say something about location by reference to some other thing? So how can you have location?
Mm.
Is location just a concept? What is the location of anything?
Yes, except relative to other things. Yeah.
Whose location is relative to other things and other, it just goes on and on.
Mm.
So location is just a thought.
Again, it's we turn it into something when we describe it or try to explain it or communicate it. Yeah. Before that, it's
I don't remember
Sometimes
where I heard this, but it's the idea of like trying to compare the locations across senses. So like I'm looking at my screen, I'm feeling some sensations in my arm. Like, where are those two things appearing in my consciousness? And like, is there any distance between them? Are they appearing in the same place? I have found that really fascinating to play with. Like, is the sound that I'm hearing, where is that appearing relative to my feeling of my shoulder?
It's all conceptual. Measurement, position.
Yep. I use the old story about if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there, is there a sound? And the logical extension of that is that, of course, there's not a sound, there's only vibrating air. It takes an eardrum and the mechanism inside the eardrum to create a nerve impulse, which travels to the brain, and the brain then constructs this thing we called a sound. And in fact, it does that for all of the senses. So even if you were to hit your thumb with a hammer, your brain approximates where that injury would be, but the actual pain of it is in the brain, not in the finger. It's the brain projects to where it thinks the injury would be via all of the other inputs that it gets. So the whole world is created and exists as something in your brain. And it's got nothing to do with what's absolutely out there.
But your brain is an idea.
Yes, of course, that is too. Yes, true. So that was just a story I told, but it is, you know, whatever. But so, yes, we don't have any idea that we've got a brain. We've only from what we've told. There's
When
no
you're talking,
experience of a brain.
when you were talking about the senses bleeding into one another, it brought to mind I think the Buddhists have the term one taste. There's only the one taste arising here, now, and ultimately all sensations are just sensations. When you strip down, there's no difference.
Except for the story we add to it.
Kevin Shanelek uses the word simulation, where you're using the word interpretation, or Bernardo uses representation. It comes to the same thing. We live in in that sense, we live in a simulation from which there's no escape.
I'm curious about y'all's thoughts on this. I remember having perspective really change a couple of years ago when I read a book. I think it's called Being You by maybe Anil Seth. It was all about consciousness and a lot of science about consciousness and where modern science is about it. And one thing that he had mentioned that I guess I appreciated that he said, this is my opinion, this is my belief, is that neuroscientists used to think that we directly experience the world. And his perspective has changed to what we experience is our brain's prediction and interpretation of what's actually happening. And that as our experience from moment to moment changes, we're not directly experiencing those things that appear to be out there. Our brain is taking in information and correcting its prediction constantly. And so if we see something happen, what we are seeing is the I guess error correction, or the the predictions that our brain is making about what's actually happening in the world. It takes in new information and corrects its predictions constantly. And so I think that maybe the
Yeah. And that's a
the
big
thing
one.
that I'm thinking has come across. I'll stop.
Yeah, that's okay. No, the really big part about that is that it's a mode of operation is to predict. And so as a labor saving device, it takes in only as much information as it needs in order to make a prediction. And it can jump the gun. So a classic that I use.
Sorry, Matthew, please mute yourself because
Is that me?
Okay. Is there some noise?
Yes, there was, yeah. And it's there again.
Okay. It's there again or no?
Not now.
Not now?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I was going to speak something that relates with what Jeremy said, that it was, if the buzzing if it returns while I'm speaking, please let me know, okay? We are constantly predicting what reality is. There is something that this is quite obvious when you're walking, for example, and you're going to you know, there's it's because I don't know the word in English. You're going to step into something that is lower from you're walking, but a degree. You're going to step down a degree, but you miscalculate it. You know, there's the sensation of falling. You can quite you can sense that there is some kind of buzzing. You know, your mind just, whoa, because in that moment the mind has to recalculate your whole spatial notion, your whole spatial thing. This become quite obvious that the mind is constantly predicting your surroundings and everything else.
Yep. And part of what we're doing here is appreciating that predictive story, and where it's appropriate, allowing that to be the way we operate. But where it's not appropriate, just going underneath that and seeing getting a bit closer to what is actual, rather than relating to just our idea of that thing. You know, so we see everything. You open your knife and fork drawer, and you see your favorite knife, or you open your cup drawer and you see your favorite cup. You know, there's always these. We're constantly doing this kind of thing. We're building things as we move through it, like one of those computer games where the edge of the world is always just at the top of the screen. We do that all the time. Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of the beginning of learning that our thoughts lie to us, you know, and it's appropriate in a lot of cases. You know, you don't need to analyze doing up your shoelaces or your shirt buttons or whatever. You just do that automatically. That's labor saving. But when you see in the corner of your eye a movement and you say, oh, that's a car, you know, then you're not relating to the car, you're relating to your idea of the car. You know, you see a massive green and you think, oh, that's a tree, and you don't even know what kind of tree it is. It's just a tree. It's just an image of a tree in your mind that you're relating to. And a lot of people go through life relating to everything in their mind. Not you guys, not us. We're better than that, aren't we? Yeah. Okay, well, it's just coming up midnight here for me, so I'm going to call it a halt unless you got something else you want to come up with. I'm not rigid on that if you want to keep talking. Okay, it's been good again. It's always good. I love it. Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Thanks, Vince.
Thank you, everybody else.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah.